Hi and welcome back. I'm going to be playing with watercolours today, and I've set out this palette. It was a present from a friend of mine, which is absolutely lovely, and something Pike it's called. I can't remember the full name, but I've got it set out with a range of colours. I won't use anywhere near all of them. But they're a mixture of SAA and Cotman. So to go through, we've got cadmium red, Payne's grey, Charles Evans sand, raw umber, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, cobalt blue, ultramarine, raw sienna, burnt umber, burnt sienna, light red, indigo, hooker's green, lemon yellow, and this is called lime green, and I had it as a present of the SAA the other day. Also, I've got a wax candle and some bits of credit card and a trusty HB pencil. What I'm going to be doing is a seascape, and I'm going to be using wax resist for the splashy bits, technical term. So now I've no idea what I'm going to paint. It's going to be a seascapey thing because that's what I'm in the mood for. So first off, I'll do not quite in the middle horizon. That's a bit too high. I'm going to cheat. Yeah, that'll do. I'll leave that line there and cover it up. So there we go. That's where the line of sea is. I'll use some of this to indicate where there's land masses, and I'm going to have some big rocks in the foreground. I know that because that's where the spray is going to come from. So there we go. That's probably going to be beach, that'll be sky, and that's sea. I might even put some more stuff over there, but I'm going to be using a selection of brushes. I don't know which ones yet, but they'll all be big. Well, no, they won't all be big. I'll start off with big ones, and first off is a hake, which is a lovely big brush, 2 inches, Ron Ranson, made by Pro Art. And with that, I'm just going to answer the phone. Right, there we are, back on again. Sorry about the interruption and the phone call. It was my daughter who was just leaving, and somebody has snapped off her wing mirror. It's occupational hazard if you live where we live. Idiots driving past. Right, okay, carry on soaking my paper. Now I think I'm going to have a bit of a windy sky. So I'm going to mix some ultramarine, quite thick. I'll put a tiny touch of light red into it. I want this quite strong, quite milky. There's plenty of water on the paper. I'm putting a lot of pigment in this wash, but I'm putting a lot of water in it as well, so that's a bit milky and quite strong. So I'll let that run. The reason I've got this on a small drawing board is so that I can do that if I want. Stop things rolling one way and start them rolling another way. And into that top I'm going to mix some alizarin into that same mix, and I'll put some heavy clouds in the top. It's all running down now. Change direction and that will stop it running too far. Not sure if you can still see all that there. Mop up some of the bottom end. Now I've dropped some stuff in there. Again, wash the hake, squeeze out most of the water, and then pull out the bottom. Just here. I'm just dabbing in bits until I get to the horizon. And then pull out along that horizon line. Squeeze the brush, pull it again. I'm going to pull out some little cloud edges. Looks like a crocodile, that one. And put some shadow in at the bottom with what you've just taken out. I want these to give the impression of movement somewhere, because there's going to be a lot of splooging about in the sea. So now, again, wash it, squeeze it, and pull out. This paper should behave better than this. It's Bockingford, and I don't know whether it's a bad batch or whether they've changed the way it's made, but I've used Bockingford for years and this seems a bit spongy. It'll dry, it always does, but anyway, I've got that sky in. I'll let it dry, see how it finishes. Now I'm going to start coming down. While that's still wet, I'm going to use one of my squirrel mops, extra large Stratford and York Jet. You can't get them anymore, which is a shame because they're wonderful brushes. Now, using my sky mix, I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber to it. And that will make me a purpley grey colour. Now while that's still wet, I want this to be thicker than the watery wash there, which will spread it into the wash. Pull out some highlights into that headland here and there. Again, straighten out. all you do there is flood it and suck out, well, squeeze out most of the water from your brush and just let it suck the colour back off the paper. Right, okay. I need to let that dry for a little while. And what I'll do while it's drying is I'll just turn you off and then come back to it when it's dry. Right, there we go. It's more or less dry now. I've been away, made another cup of coffee, and I'll be honest, I did cheat and I gave it a little bit of a blast with the hairdryer just to speed things up. But we're here now, and this is the bit that I wanted to show. What that is it's actually a small candle, like a, I don't know, just a very small cheap candle. And I was breaking it in half and I forgot it was still a candle, and I need to chop the wick in half. There. Now I'm using the edge of it, and all I want to do is put some scribbly bits. Now, what will happen there is that the paint won't be able to touch the paper, and so where it's, sorry, I'm getting a right tiz-was, spilling water everywhere. Where I put the candle wax, the paint won't touch the paper and it will show as white when I've got some stuff on there. So without further ado, I'm going to mix up a sea colour, ultramarine, because it's reflecting the sky, and that's the colour I've got in the sky. And I'm going to try some of this lime green that was a present from the SAA. I'll mix that into it. Oh, that's quite a nice sea colour. So, there, now, a bit more of it in there. And I want it fairly pale out there. A little stronger. More blue, more green. So there, that's a bit iffy. It is possible, once it's all dry, it is possible to put a paper tissue over it and then iron it. or if you get hot enough, apply heat to it enough to melt the wax, and it will soak off into a paper towel. But there's not really much need to do that. I'm not happy about that bit. I might have to scrape some of that off. But now I'm going to play with the rocks now. So the first thing I want to do is an underpainting. I'm going to mix up some raw sienna, some burnt umber, I want it thick, and I'm going to do just some underpainting there. There. Now that needs to dry, and while it's drying I'm going to put some over painting on the sea. That is one of my favourite brushes. It's a sable, and it's by Da Vinci. It's called a Maestro, and I just really like it. Okay, lemon yellow into this sea colour. I want it nice and clear. Lots of pigment. And nice and strong but still runny. What I'm going to do with that is put a band out there. This is called wet on dry. Up there's wet in wet. This is wet on dry because I'm putting wet paint on top of the dry paint. And what I'm doing now is just softening the bottom edge with clear water. It's a bit too green, a bit more blue. While the paint is wet, you can do all sorts of things with it. Sunshiny bits out there. That's still a bit damp. Give it a blast. Now I'll mix up some really dark colours for the shadows. I'm going to use the same base of that. I'm going to mix into it some Payne's Grey with some ultramarine and a touch of alizarin to warm it up. And now I've got a really thick paint, and I'm going to put it all over this stuff. Now, while that is still wet, credit card I used before still didn't work. It didn't work, which is why I chopped it up, and now it's still not working for this. So there you've got some texture in that dark, some lights. And there we've got that. Now, going back to my, I'll use my little 1/2 inch flat, that brush, and I want to get some wavy bits, for want of a better word, in there. And back to this yellow, mix in some of that green, and mix in some more of the sea colour. A little bit more blue. And out here I'm just going to put some little liney bits. where the frothy bits are, it's some foamy colour. Okay, we've got some frothy bits there. I'm going to pull out right now. I'm not over happy with those rocks, so where's my pointy brush there? Going to mix some of this thick dark again. And I'm going to actually put in some shadows just to add some definition to the rock, make it look as if it is rock. Right, brighten all the way through it. All I'm doing here is reinforcing the bits where I've left darks anyway. Sort of strata in it. Now, one of the paints I've got here is Charles Evans sand. It's one that Charles Evans has made specifically by De La Rowney to his own recipe, and it's a very strong light colour and it's very opaque. So what I'm going to do is just put touches of that into here. Mix some of the dark into it to make it more grey on the edges. There's a little bit of yellow ochre to it, because yellow ochre is also very opaque. Some people I know, because they've told me, say this isn't true watercolour painting, but it's not traditional. But if Mr. Renoir and Mr. Monet had only done traditional oil painting, just think what the world would have missed. And I'm not, before anybody says anything, trying to put myself into such august pun company, but rules are there to be, if not broken, bent a little bit if needed. I'm mixing other colours into it now just to warm some of this up. Right, now, going back to this on its own, the sand colour, just going to dot it about in waves. Because this is so thick and opaque, it's actually sitting on top of some of the wax. And mix in some blue with that. It's sort of bluey grey colour, which I can quite happily live with in these wavy bits. And what I'm really doing here is sort of abstracting it. It's not painting a real wave, it's just getting the feel of a wave, and there's bits there where you can't really tell what's rock and what's wave. It's not a brilliant painting, but it's starting to look a bit like what I wanted it to look like. Now, the piece de resistance. Well, it would be if I could find my gouache paints, which are supposed to be in there. Just letting it dry for a minute. I know, they're in here. I was using them the other day. And typical me, forgot to put them away again. There we go. Let's put a blob of this in the corner. This is Le Franc-Bourgeois gouache, and it's really, really wonderful. I love it as a brand. They're not cheap in this country. I used to go to France every summer, and I'd always stock up on them while I was there. But here we go. With my little tiny pointy brush, I'm going to add to my dottiness. I use gouache because it is completely opaque. And I'm using this particular white because I know it's opaque. I did a tryout of some Montmartre gouache, and they were fine except for the white. The white was not as strong as I would have liked. So what I'm doing here is just putting spotty bits. The only way, or the only reason this works, is if you keep it random. odd drops. That way you look as if it's the movement. I'm thinking now. I'm a bloke, so I find it difficult to think and talk at the same time. As far as I'm concerned, it comes under the habit of multitasking. So there we go. We've got lots of splodgy bits there, and a few down there. We've got the idea of wave splooshing. I'm not happy with some of that. Make some more of this dark Payne's grey, alizarin, ultramarine blue, some more darks under here. Again, this dark is very, very thick paint. And it will still dry quite thick. Quite dark, I mean, even though everything lightens a little bit with watercolour. The thicker it is, the less it changes. But the thicker it is, the less sparkle you get coming through from the paper. But I don't mind that so much here, because what we've got here is rock, which is not supposed to be shiny, it's supposed to be flat. Not flat, but solid. Right, I'm going to leave that. Bit busy at the bottom. So, get some more of my gouache and my little pointy pen, and some little gully walls. If you have the nerve, which I don't, you can use the gouache to splatter. But no, I never ever seem to have the nerve to do that. I'm going to put some more colour into the sky. again what Charles Evans calls digital art. There we go. I'm going to leave that as it is. Just take the tape off. I'll turn... No, I won't. See how it works. When you're taking tape off, always pull it away from your painting. That way you don't rip the paint up into your painting. There we go. That could be a lot better, but I'm going to leave it as it is. And I'm not even going to bother giving it a title because it's just a painting demonstrating how to lift out, use wax resist and fiddle about with gouache and opaque paint just to create an effect. So there we go, splashy rocks. Thanks for watching, bye bye.